Today with us is Tim Sparrow from the UK, originally from the UK, now living in Belgium and working originally from Maidstone College in the UK. Tim, thank you for being with us these days here in Berlin, and also for having or agreeing on this little chat. First, you just had your lecture on MS. It was quite inspiring. Thank you very much. Would you like to add a few words, or maybe if not, summarize the major points you made for everybody?
Yes, the emphasis of the presentation was dealing with the phenomenon or the idea of treating MS as a multidisciplinary, multi-systems approach, where we're looking at the holistic approach to treatment, where we're integrating and working as much as possible at trying to re-establish aspects of motoric and physiological balance within the body. Quite often we're dealing with a degenerative condition that presents to us with a lot of autonomic presenting scenarios, and it's focused on trying to work with addressing the symptoms, but also getting behind the mechanisms of those symptoms in terms of the autonomic nervous system. So we address the possibility of improving the functionality of the digestive system, reducing constipation, through to addressing the functionality of the urinary system, and also, of course, the general health and immunity of the patient too, considering that it's an autoimmune mediated condition that we have. And of course, as we can do, the motoric rehabilitatory side of things too.
In the past, you were referring to John Wernham and John Martin Littlejohn as influential osteopaths for your work. Would you describe your personal development, your career within osteopathy with regard to your physiological or constitutional approach?
Well, my training background began before. Well, in the late 80s, and I was very fortunate to be trained under the guidance of John Wernham, who was one of the first graduates of the British School of Osteopathy, who had personal but also educational direction from John Martin Littlejohn, who was the founder of the BSO, and he continued with those ideas, and as a consequence of that, I have also become actively involved with maintaining the ideas and philosophy and ideologies of classical osteopathy within the Institute of Classical Osteopathy in England. That developed in the early 90s by me and some other colleagues, busily actively involved with setting up an academy, International Academy of Osteopathy in Belgium. And then in the late 80s, late 90s, we began to look into the possibility of setting up and establishing a degree-based course, and that's now up and running as an MSc course in Surrey, the Surrey Institute of Osteopathic Medicine. And from that, I have had some experience of working in Holland for 10 or 12 years. I was involved with a conference on pediatric osteopathy in 2000, and I was lucky enough also to meet Viola Froyman in 2001, when she did also a pediatric and cranial based course there. And over time I have been looking gently into the possibility of developing my own qualification from diploma status through to an MSc status, and that's still something that's ongoing, with a view hopefully next year to do a conversion course, which will be on the basis of doing some pilot study on the osteopathic management of multiple sclerosis.
So in a concrete therapeutic context, what is your mindset behind approaching a patient, behind palpating a physiology and anatomy?
Well, there's a combination of of structural analysis, palpatory analysis, and functional anatomy, the relationship of functional anatomy to that analysis. We also have a specific, in the classical model that we utilize, and we have a specific biomechanical model where we're looking at the development of spinal arches and the influence of the functionality of those arches on the neurophysiology and the mechanico-neurophysiological link to the body. So that integrates the autonomic nervous system too. And throughout the treatment, we utilise the concept of the body adjustment, which is a holistic, integrative approach to treatment, which addresses all aspects of both the biomechanical and functional anatomy and neurophysiological aspect of the body at the same time.
Maybe a general question on the ANS, one of our subjects for the Congress. What do you deem to be a healthy environment for the ANS in general?
Usually one which has enough elements of provision for stability in a quiet environment. We are living in an environment nowadays where we're constantly being demanding upon us. The social demographic environment is such that we have lots of busy schedules, and really the autonomic nervous system is adapting to that to an extent that we're actually now seeing more adaptive consequences of that, and the neuroadrenal aspect, adrenaline, the stress mediation that we see quite frequently within the patient domain has changed considerably. So for us, really what we're looking at is addressing the expression of autonomic dysfunction or autonomic imbalance and trying to re-establish that. Now that can be through the means of integrating the autonomic nervous system in terms of the cranial and parasympathetic aspect of things, but also correlating that to the consequences of increased sympathetic tone and sympathetic activity and the effect of the stressors on that aspect of the body too.
There are many young students of osteopathy here in this Congress, and so in your opinion, maybe what are key factors in becoming a potent osteopath?
I think there's lots of changes. There's a lot of research going on in the last 4 or 5 years. The amount of research that is going on in osteopathy is it's developed exponentially. That's a good thing. It's providing an evidence base behind our work. What I would encourage youngsters to do is not to forget the origins and the history of our work, because quite often you see parallels in the developments and research that was done then to those of today. The main difference is, of course, the mechanism of being able to assess some of those parameters. We've got far more scientific-based mechanisms of doing that. To any student, I would say very much get into understanding what the background behind the neurophysiology of the body is all about. Functional anatomy is very valuable, and also to have respect for the fact that your whole development will take time. Don't be afraid of not being able to feel things straight away. Once you've got good clinical direction and mentoring by other colleagues or other tutors, they will give you specific direction in terms of palpatory skills and developing technique skills, which they also had to address in their development as osteopaths too. So just basically keep going, look into the developments in the field of osteopathic medicine, look at addressing how we can, most importantly, actually disseminate that information across other healthcare practitioners and, most importantly, the public, so they have an awareness of what our potential is. And don't be afraid to do that, because you have enough basis knowledge and experience, and especially now with research-based qualifications, to be able to extend that knowledge to other healthcare practitioners in confidence. So just as John Martin Littlejohn and John Wyndham used to say, and of course Andrew Taylor Still, dig on, as they say, D-O, dig on.
Yeah. Maybe we end with a personal anecdote of yours, something you experienced with the last 20, 30 years as an osteopath, something worth sharing.
Yes, for me it's basically to remain humble, to have respect for the past and the developments coming on as associated with that. Also with respect to your abilities, don't naturally assume because you're going to go to a course for a weekend that you are immediately able to do what that course represents. If you're going to become a pediatric osteopath, minimum of 5 years training at an appropriate school. Don't just assume that a short course will provide you with the tools to be able to do the job. And be cautious, but at the same time, have confidence in your skill set and develop them in your own time. Most importantly, that also correlates to how the patient will perceive you as an osteopath and how they will develop a confidence in you as their primary healthcare physician in terms of osteopathic medicine.